Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. First up on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda, and this consists of items that have been previously vetted by either the Public Works and Finance Committee or the Administrative Committee and are broadly non-controversial and routine housekeeping matters. And any of these items can be removed for separate consideration by a member of council if they so desire.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Nope. Bryce?
Aye.
Julia?
Aye.
Gina?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
And Haley?
Aye.
Great. Moving on to the regular agenda. Tonight, we have mayor's appointments, and it's the end of the year, so it's quite the scroll of names for people who are re-upping on their particular commission, people who've voiced interest in staying on their commission. And if there's no reason to let them go, then there they stay. So first up, for the Board of Adjustment, both appointments expiring 12/31/2029, Marshall Comstock and Tim Kincaid. For Fair and Affordable Housing Commission. And for these, and unless otherwise noted, these appointments will all expire 12/31/2027. But Fair and Affordable Housing Commission, Aya Summer and Jennifer Wallace. For the Farmers Market Commission, Phil Blankenship and Sam Martinet. For the Historic Preservation Commission, Steve Taylor, Shelley Harmon, Jack Porter, and Laura Beth Kowalik. For the Human Rights Commission, Rula Awad Rafferty, Aaron Agidius, Elizabeth Stevens. For the Moscow Arts Commission, these appointments expiring 12/31/28, Sonia Fjord and Cindy Barnhart. For the Moscow Pathways Commission, Robert Hackendorn and Aaron Bacon. For the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency, appointments expiring 12/31/2029, Sandra Kelly, Allison Tompkins, and Tom Lamar. For the Parks and Recreation Commission, Rich Gaylor and Ted Keisha. Planning and Zoning Commission, Rich Beebe, expiring 12/31/2029. Sustainable Environment Commission, Sophie Gilbert, Garrett Lasavita, and Victoria Sievert. And for the Transportation Commission, 12/31/2029, Mike McGann. And finally, for the Tree Commission, expiring 12/31/27, like all the others, Jean Laughingwell and Ella Seifert.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, if that's okay, and it may be more of a staff question, and I had sent an email about it. First, I don't have concerns with the slew of folks that that you are recommending that we reappoint, but I'm trying to understand the historic context for council representation on the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency. And I know Sandra served and has served us well. But this is one of the few agencies where it's an appointment and not like a committee liaising position.
Mhm.
And so trying to understand what historically we've seen as far as counselors being able to serve on the Urban Renewal Agency, if it's a dedicated 2 seats, because I think Drew is our other current person who took over when Maureen retired off of council. So I'm curious if we've usually seen 2 council members serve on MURA. And I'm sorry if it was something that we needed to express interest to you for. I didn't realize there was a vacancy coming up, but curious if in the bylaws what it outlines for council appointments, and then just trying to understand how we got here, I guess.
Well, traditionally, there have been 2 appointees from council onto the URA. The URA requires a pretty long runway to get into the full and complete historical understanding of how the URA works and what it does and what its own timelines are. In the past, 2 counselors are appointed, and generally they serve until either they leave office or decide to resign. I was on there for 8 solid years, and historic practice has been, once you're there, unless you want to leave, you stay put and just express interest like the other appointees on all the commissions work, is you just say, yes, I'm interested in staying. Okay, unless there's a reason not to, people go on.
Okay, that helps. And I get the long runway piece. I could say the same. I've asked, and the council has humored me when I've asked to maintain my smart transit board position because it's a similar situation. It can take a long time. So I've been grateful that the council's been game for having me serve in that board seat for 3 years. I guess in my head, all the council appointments, liaising, and commission conversation, I was mentally bookmarked for January 6th.
Oh.
And so in my head, this conversation specifically about the council seat would come up with the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency conversation then. And so I guess I'm not sure what other counselors feel, and it's not meant to be anything. I think Sandra and Drew have been doing a great job, and Maureen before Drew. And Mr. Mayor, I don't have concerns about who you're recommending. I just, especially knowing that this term ends in 2029, where we may or may not, the rest of us may or may not be in office. And I don't remember when Drew's term ends, knowing if Sandra's term ends in 2029, I'm not sure when Drew's is, and I'm really not sure what chance any of the rest of us will have to voice interest in getting on that runway and taking a first step. So,
Yep. Generally, it's 1 year, 2 year extensions. Yep.
okay.
Is how that one works. Also, on some of the other boards, like the Board of Adjustment, operates very much the same way. So these
Right.
appointments, the two that were named tonight for reappointment, extend clear to 2029.
And we know they meet less frequently, but the runway is just as important for someone to feel up to speed.
Yep. So that's
That-
how things landed.
The context helps. I guess I'm sad that I didn't understand that there may have been an opportunity for us or a call for us to voice interest in serving and I guess getting in line for one of the leapfrog seats for MURA. And I'm feeling a little stuck because like my hands are tied because
Yep.
I can't imagine I'm the only one who's interested. I don't know how the rest of council feels. So
I think you need a list, especially for URA, because I voiced interest when Drew got appointed. So, yeah,
Well-
I think you need to make a list or keep a book or something.
I've been promoted to Santa Claus.
Yes, you have.
Gonna
People
make
could
a
always
list and
attend the
check it
meetings, right? They're
twice.
public.
Totally.
it's true, but
So-
we don't have voting power. And if we're having two people sit, I think we have
An open meeting.
It's an open meeting. We don't have voting power if we're sitting in an open meeting, but yeah.
So anyway, but there we are tonight. So
Okay, thank you for the context.
I move that we approve the slate of commissioners
Thank
for commission appointments.
Second.
okay, moved and seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Just want to say thank you to all our commission members because they're awesome. And that list reads like a who's who of volunteers in Moscow.
Very much so. And these people do a lot of good work, and the commissions bring items up that have been studied in depth and in great detail to the council for their consideration, truly. So, Julia,
Aye.
Bryce,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Drew,
Aye.
Haley,
No,
Gina.
Aye.
Okay, 5-1. All right, next up is public comment and mayor's response period. And for the next 15 minutes in 3-minute increments, I invite people from the public to come up in the podium, state your name and place of residence, and tell us what's on your mind, as long as it's not on tonight's agenda, as long as it's not pending before the Board of Adjustment or Planning and Zoning Commission, nor involved in any litigation that involves the city. So with that, jump up. Don't stand on ceremony. Use your elbows if you have to.
Okay. Well, I'm Terry Jane. I live at 1986 Damon Street in Moscow, Idaho. And
I'm Renee Skripchak. Yeah, same address.
anyway, the reason we wanted to just kind of make some comments is we are members of the Palouse Pickleball Club. And it is a pickleball club that was established to provide support not only to the city of Moscow, but all the little towns in Latah County. And we put it together because more and more people are playing pickleball of all ages. And Moscow is kind of behind a little bit as far as pickleball infrastructure, those kind of things. And so we're just here to a couple of reasons. One, let the council know that we are here. Two, that we are a nonprofit and therefore we can apply for nonprofit grants that can be used by the city of Moscow to help provide infrastructure. And we did that in last year by improving the outdoor courts at Gormley Park. And so I just wanted to let you know that. And also, I guess we have a question in that, how is it the best way for us as a nonprofit for pickleball, best way to interact with the city and how to support and collaborate so that we can provide opportunities to enhance our pickleball courts and availability for all ages, for tournaments, for teaching kids, all of that kind of stuff. And so that's one question we have. We have made contact with the Parks and Rec Board, but we still don't know exactly how to play the game as far as how to work with the city.
Yeah. So one good start is to talk to David Schott of the Parks Department and ask him how best to approach the issue and start moving along that way, because the parks can take donations to assist with projects, buttonhole the funds for specific purposes. And so he'd be a good first staff liaison to talk with, and he can work with the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Commission to put you on the agenda to make a more full presentation to the Parks and Rec Commission, and they can apply their expertise to help see you along the way. And I also quite agree with your goals here of establishing some more pickleball courts within the city. Yeah. So please carry on, keep doing it.
We'll do our best. Anything else we can add?
Well, we have talked with David Schott.
Good.
And he has informed us that the next improvements to get more courts, outdoor courts, will be in the budget for 2031.
This is where you guys come in, because as a nonprofit, you can apply for grant monies to assist in these endeavors and possibly / hopefully buck the additional courts further up the list.
Yeah.
That's part of our question, because a lot of these grants,
They have to be shovel ready. In other words, we have to have the project in place and we just put money into it
Right.
to help. And so the hard part is getting them shovel ready, the projects.
So mostly that would involve identification of a site, I think, and doing the engineering work
Right.
that would be necessary. And I think this is a possibility that we could work on.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that we have a lot of different user groups that have a lot of priorities, and that's why, and with very limited funding and staff time to administer projects. And so realistically, the 2031 probably is when we can fit that into our schedule. So again, I think working with the Parks and Rec Commission, I think they're going to be working on updating kind of their capital improvement plan, prioritizing the facilities and needs across the community for all the different various user groups, and certainly advocating for the need for pickleball facilities, and then trying to get on that list. But we do have very limited funding, and we do have limited staff for kind of the shovel ready design process. But I think keeping in touch with the Parks and Rec Commission and Mr. Schott would be your best avenue.
That's good to know, because maybe we can provide expertise to help that along as well. Anywhere where we can collaborate with the city in any way to help promote pickleball and other kind of, there's lots of basketball in there and all those other facilities that can be complementary to each other. So
they have identified where they want to put these pickleball courts. It's just a matter of how can we best collaborate so that maybe we can move
Push
this
it
along
forward
before 2031 because of those budget constraints. It's like, well, how can we help? So,
So I'd encourage you to work with David to identify, I mean, if you have funding or grant sources you've identified, to work with him to see if that's something that the city could take advantage of in cooperation with your organization.
Great.
Sandra.
So this is great. Thanks for coming in. I had a couple of just quick ideas. And one is I get a chance to work with a lot of different nonprofits around town. And there's a group called the Moscow Nonprofit Roundtable, and we meet once a month. And I can't remember the next time we meet. I think it's January. That's a group of the different nonprofits. And you could bounce these ideas off them also, because there may be some things that maybe aren't involved with the city, right? There may be other options on where to put some things or do some things. And I think that'd be a really great group to chat with. And if you want more information, I'm happy to find that for you. My brain doesn't have that in my head right now.
Yeah.
But I'm welcome you to email me, and I will try to get you like when we meet and if it's in person or on Zoom. And then those folks might have some other ways that because 2031 does seem like a long ways away until you're actually doing the city budget. Then it's like tomorrow. So I think there are some options at least to chat about and maybe find other ways to do this.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Who else would like to pop up and bring something up? Okay, no takers. Okay, next up is the city limits ordinance. Scott Bontrager going to talk to us about our city limits.
I feel like we should break into song.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is a yearly thing that we do, having to bring the city limits. So underneath Idaho State Code, more specifically Section 63-215, it requires a taxing
So
district.
your mic's a little quiet. I don't know if it's you or in the back. Joaquin, is his mic running well?
Check one.
Try again.
Sure. Underneath Idaho State Code, more specifically Section 63-215, it requires a taxing district to file a new legal description and map reflecting any changes in their boundary over the previous year. This is required to occur by January 10th of each year. And in our case, the boundary was adjusted through 3 separate annexations this year, which I'll show you up here. So we had Pine View subdivision up on the northeast side, the Wild Rose Court subdivision over on the southeast side, and the South Moscow Business District, also known as SEMO, down on the south end, down there in South 95. So the Pine View subdivision, just kind of a refresher, was annexed on May 6, 2024, and it was 22.98 acres, 93 acres. The Wild Rose Court subdivision was annexed on May 6, 2024 also, and it was 2.53 acres. And then the South Moscow Business District, SOMA, was annexed on October 7th, 2024. That's 51.53 acres, which puts us at roughly 77 acres that we're adding this year. So staff's recommendation is to approve the ordinance adopting the new boundary under suspension of the rules requiring 3 separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary.
Questions, counselors? Comments?
Well, it just reflects what we've already done all year, so it's not really shocking. But
Pretty
thank
clear.
you, Scott.
Mr. Mayor, would you entertain a motion?
I would love to be entertained.
I'll do my best. I move we approve the ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary.
Second.
Thank you, Sandra. So no discussion first time. I assume there's none this time. So Bryce.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Gina.
Aye.
Haley.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
And Julia.
Aye, and I like Scott's tie tonight.
Very good.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
So what are we up to, Lori?
21.
Ordinance number 2024-21. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2024-03 of the City of Moscow, Idaho, establishing and declaring in this ordinance the corporate limits of the City of Moscow, Latah County, Idaho, in accordance with the provision of the laws of the State of Idaho relating to the establishment of the boundaries and the annexation of adjacent and contiguous territory, providing for repeal of any other ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing a severance and savings clause, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law. Boom. So, I feel like I should drop the mic after that. So next up is an item on the amended agenda, which is the Human Rights Commission, Martin Luther King Human Rights Community Breakfast Sponsorship Request. Chief Dallinger.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi, Chief. Everybody's doing well. So yes, I'll be brief. This is due to the changes in the procurement policy. This one kind of snuck up on the commission, and so we couldn't get it before a commission. The Human Rights Commission has sponsored this event for years and years. So they are requesting $750 sponsorship for the breakfast.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to add that I appreciate that our Human Rights Commission budgets for this already, so this isn't an unexpected ask. And I appreciate the new ordinance guidance that requires, I appreciate the extra visibility and chance for us to discuss these sponsorships. So no concerns for me. Thanks for bringing it.
I move that we approve the sponsorship request.
Second.
Okay. Gina.
Yes.
Drew.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
Julia.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Haley.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
showing
everyone.
up for that brief appearance.
We can tell the Human Rights Commission tomorrow about this, and they'll be excited. Yeah.
And I think they're still accepting applications for the awards.
For the yes, I believe so as
I
well.
think for another couple weeks, maybe.
So next up, item 6 is the East City Park Stage Project Update. And this is a report from Cody Riddle on what the status of the new replacement stage is going to be and an iteration of where we're going from here, depending on council feedback. Cody.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Happy to provide you with kind of an update and report on the East City Stage project. I think it was important that we check back in with you before we proceed with broader public outreach and then ultimately finalizing a concept and cost estimate that we would again bring back to you. So I think as you'll recall, just briefly, a preliminary work on this project dates back to at least 2010 when there was a fairly extensive outreach process that occurred, knowing at that time that the stage would ultimately need to be replaced at some point. After that outreach effort, then subsequently the restroom building, consistent with that vision or the design that was established in the outreach, was completed in 2013. And then I would also like to note that the capital improvement plan, since its inception, has always had a new East City Park stage in the project, and that it was at least as envisioned in the CIP, envisioned as an attached structure to that restroom building. So that brings us forward to this spring. As you'll recall, and unfortunately, the stage deteriorated a bit faster than we anticipated, and unfortunately had to be taken down immediately for safety concerns. Given that this is such an important community amenity that lots of different groups use and rely on, we began immediately looking at a process to where we could have the stage replaced. So on May 6th, we brought before council a professional services agreement with Design West Architects, and Ned is with us this evening, and he'll actually address you here in a moment. In presenting that design or that professional services agreement, I think it's fair to say there's quite a bit of discussion, but ultimately that agreement was approved, and that approval was for a 30% concept design and cost estimate for a new stage to be attached to the restroom building. And that it would build upon kind of that design and outreach effort that previously occurred, and then ultimately again inform a future budget request, hopefully for design and construction. However, it became quite clear between that May and June meeting that there was a lot of public interest. And so we came back and provided an additional report, and there was quite a bit of additional discussion then. It became very clear that we needed to engage in additional stakeholder and public outreach. So with that, here, just over a month ago, or right at a month ago, we did have a stakeholder meeting, a first stakeholder meeting that included the groups you see on the screen, Rendezvous in the Park, the Renaissance Fair, and it was a representative from each group, Earth Day, Hemp Fest, Palouse Pride, the Moscow Community Band, Festival Dance, Lake Tahoe Recovery Center, and then city staff that included myself, Parks, and someone from Arts. So at that meeting, we walked the group through a variety of drawings that included a basic floor plan for a new stage that would be attached to the restroom building. We walked them through what a floor plan would look like for a stage that was a standalone structure. And then probably more powerful, a series of 3D perspectives that showed each design contextually in the park. And so we can just walk through those briefly so you see the same materials they saw. Again, it included here where you can see the new stage attached to the restrooms from a few different angles. Fairly accurately represents in both of these illustrations existing vegetation or the trees. Here you can see kind of off to the corner, almost from the corner of the playground looking down at that new location. And then here we did also share with them 3D perspectives of what that stage would look like approximately in that existing location that I think you've heard about. Ultimately, though, the bulk of that meeting was focused on just siting and orientation, and then the pros and cons of each location, and then we opened it up to group discussion. I'm going to have Ned walk you through those pros and cons that were discussed with the group, and then I'll wrap things up for you. So.
Welcome, Ned. Hello.
Thank you, Council Mayor. Thank you for your time. Following up through May, June, and up through this time, which seems like time's flown, and just a little while ago that I was talking to you about this, we did go back to the drawing board, listening carefully to the council input that we heard and other input that is rumbling around in the community. And we looked very closely at the two options of the stage location attached to the existing restroom building and looking at developing a stage in the location where it currently exists or has historically existed. And so in the meetings that the meeting that we had with the stakeholders in November, we worked through those conversations and came up with a summary of pros and cons, which you see on the stage or on the screen now, and I believe you may have in your council package. A few to highlight. So starting out with the first one, the pros related to the restrooms, and rather than reading down through this, the main ones were better amphitheater in terms of the natural ways that the slope and the open space is available for seating, and its relationship to the playground, allowing parents who are playing with their kids to actually enjoy the stage instead of having the stage turn their back to the playground. The ability of us to take advantage of the construction of the restroom saves us money, and that we don't need to build the back wall of the new stage that's already been built for us. And likewise with electrical and some site work, it becomes a less expensive option for us to do that in that area. And then from the performer's perspective, rotating it out of the setting sun so that you're looking in a northwesterly direction rather than a westerly direction during most evening performances, and also having it have more of the back wall be an acoustical screen from the busier 3rd Street side of the park. The cons to this particular option, there is a little bit more grading and paving that would go along with this if we were to achieve the full development of it. And there's some rearrangements as to how the flow of the park goes. It'll still have the basic kind of X arrangement of pedestrian paths, but they'll be slightly rearranged as they go around the stage. Looking at the existing location, it does not disturb the circulation I was just talking about, and it does keep us in the landscaped area. But it would require either us putting up with 3 very large mature trees directly in front of the stage, taking out really the whole southern side of the front stage front to really adequate views, which will then take the reduced seating area and reduce it even further in terms of adequate view lines, unless we do remove 3 very large mature trees. And then the increased cost of us building there is associated with, we don't get to take advantage of the existing structure. We'll need to extend electrical over to that site. And there's some additional grading that goes along with that increases the cost. We are, and we have been cost estimating all of these, but just to try to put this into relative perspective, the costs are roughly $50,000 to $70,000 more expensive for us to continue development of the existing location. And that's really directly related to additional concrete masonry, additional electrical, and additional site work associated with those two things.
Just ask a clarifying question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure if you misspoke or I misunderstood, but I think you said that there would be additional paving with the restroom location, but it says on the handout that there'll be additional paving for the existing location.
Both of them will require additional paving. And so it's kind of a question as to how far that development goes out, and that will end up being associated with the council or the city's direction related to what costs we want to do. The difficulty with the existing stage location is there's really no paving up and around that location now. And so for it to have an equivalent development, it would be more expensive. If we were just to plop it down much the same way that the existing stage is, then it would be less paving. So it's, you are correct to be confused because we're mixing and matching pros and cons.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then, so I wanted to touch on what we heard at that stakeholder meeting. I think first of all, and most significantly, there was unanimous support from the group for both the location and the orientation of that stage. We had to circle back and ask the group 2 or 3 times just to make sure, because that was the number one answer we wanted to get out of the group, was just, are we on the right track with the location and orientation? They confirmed that a number of times. But they did want to get into the details, which are kind of exciting. And that's, to ensure we had adequate power for both events at the stage and then throughout the park, the different things that are held. That loading and unloading was still accommodated, both for the stage and the other events that are held at the park. That it remained accessible, that we maintain or even enhance pedestrian circulation to the stage and through the park. That there was perhaps a durable surface, at least a portion of it, for audience, Dancers Plaza, that's been talked about a number of times in the past. And then that the ultimate installation accommodated a lot of flexibility for lighting and sound. We didn't just meet. I think it's important, like you, we've heard from a number of individuals, or a handful of individuals concerned with the outreach and replacement of that stage. I met with a couple of them I thought might be here this evening, but I just wanted to share some of the things we heard from them. Because I think it's important that we don't discount or dismiss that input. It's important that they're heard, and we do want their perspective and to honor their contributions to this stage that go way back. So just in no particular order, there was a concern that we might be losing a community gathering space. The new stage would no longer be centrally located. Perhaps some accessibility challenges with the slope in the new location. A thought that there might be reduced seating, and then a concern that we continue to have adequate space for vendors and booths. So just in terms of design considerations, I took one of Ned's drawings and just splashed a little color on here. So please be gentle in my little artistic endeavor. But I think what this does show, you can see the 2 locations. You can see 2 of the 3 trees Ned talked about that really obstruct views from the stage and to the stage, if we were to stick with that existing location. And then not too far back, you see, and I'm sure you've all been on the site, fairly dense vegetation, including shrubs back here, that limits visibility and seating for that existing location. I think you can see, I measured distance-wise just from the front of the stage back to that more dense vegetation. It's about 75 feet, where we have over 150 feet from here back to roughly the corner of the playground. So you can see the much larger seating area that starts to be accommodated with that new location. And then here, just in terms of the central.
Could you speak into the mic a little bit more?
Okay. In terms of that's odd. In terms of the central location, I don't even, is it even on? In terms of the central location, you can see, is that better? The just quick illustration that took diagonal lines from each property corner and showed the center of that park. You can see the existing stage here, and then the restroom building here. So both are very close to the center of that park. And then you can start to see some of the challenges with vegetation with this orientation versus the open and actually more gentle slope. I should have backed up. I tried to highlight the topography on this slide where you can see the distance between the contours is much greater kind of through here. So it is actually a flatter area over there between that restroom building and the playground itself. So what's next? Certainly an opportunity for additional stakeholder engagement. That same group that we talked to on November 15th had a lot of ideas just around some of the details for that 30% design, and then public outreach, ultimately with the idea that we advance that design to a 30% design and cost estimate that we can bring back to this group for presentation. And then ultimately our hope is to identify funding and pursue construction just as soon as possible. So what that outreach from our perspective would look like, again, sitting down with that stakeholder group at least one more time, probably an open house or public meeting, probably something here in council chambers. If we still have enough time, we could engage folks at the winter market. Like other projects, some of our boards and commissions would take a special interest in this project, and rightfully so. One of the earliest dates at the actual farmers market. And then even leveraging some of the events, Earth Day, Renaissance Fair, I think are some of the earlier events coming up this spring, and then working with our website to have a continuous opportunity for feedback. All of that, from our perspective, would culminate in a presentation back to this group where we walk you through a 30% design, cost estimate, and a summary of all the public feedback we receive. So that's where we're at. Happy to try to answer any questions you have. And sorry for the mic. It seems to be working again now.
So just so those of us who are architecturally gifted, but I want to go back to your topography statement and try to use regular language for a minute. So the distance being greater from each of those lines means that it takes a longer time for it to become higher or lower, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So whereas on the sides, it's pretty tight, that means it's a steeper spot.
Correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sandra.
Cody, what kind of, I'm sorry I don't know this, I shouldn't, I just don't. What kind of community, not stakeholder outreach, but what kind of community outreach have we already done?
Since the 2010 effort, nothing with the entire community. It was just that stakeholder group.
So all of that is yet to come then?
Correct.
Right. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I've got a bunch, but I was going to wait if someone else wants to go for it. Okay, Mr. Mayor, may I? Cool. I know we're at 30% design concept, and I'm flashing back to this conversation in May or June when it first came to council, and I was pretty enthusiastic about asking for us to understand and evaluate if the 15-year-old data was still what we wanted to base this on. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Design West, for entertaining that. And it's helpful to hear the cost comparison should it stay in the same place. And so knowing that we've got 30% design capacity, I've got a couple of questions, and it's okay, Ned, if this is something that falls outside of what would come with 30%. So I'm still, in the renderings I'm seeing, I'm still pretty concerned about the load in and load out and what paving is going to mean there. In a lot of ways, having the stage separate from the bathrooms has provided a nice artificial green room, al fresco green room for calm, quiet load in, load out. And so I'm trying to understand what, because I'm not seeing the schematics, what that additional paving or area would be. So load in, load out is one. And then I'm curious about the lighting and sound booth. It looks like it's a concrete box. It doesn't have any windows to the stage, and the sound guys that I've worked with tend to like to be able to see what they're working with. So curious if future sound/lighting expertise would be included in a future scope, and or what we're working with so far for the sound and lighting. And then I've got a couple other questions, but load in, load out and the sound topic are two that I'm curious about. It's also okay if the answer is that's not in 30% of our scope, but
It is, and we're not at 30%, just so to
Cool.
say that. And you are echoing some of the concerns that came up in our stakeholders meeting. What was of interest to me, and I will get to your questions, but to give you the context, the reason that Cody said we kept coming back to saying, is this your unanimous choice, was they were immediately saying, well, of course, that's what we want. We want to answer questions like, how does the bus or how does the van unload and how is that going to work? What happens to my falafel stand when the spot it's historically been needs to get bounced? And so those are things that we're working towards. In terms of, so load in, load out, currently the direction it's going, but is not complete as we're not at 30%, is that there will be additional paving and vehicle maneuvering space to what is the southwest side of the restrooms. And so there'll be a little bit more paved area for that to occur in that area.
which can get swampy anyways, kind of by the bike rack. Is that right? Okay.
Oh, that's good.
And that discussion is still in evolution because in that input, we learned the size of the vans, the types of things. We don't have full-on RVs. We don't have full-on tour buses, things like that. And so we're working through that analysis of that. On the sound and light, what you see on the plan as that is a storage closet. That is, it
Not
is
a control room.
It is a head end. The things will be like wiring will be routed back that. But we will be working so that we end up having a sound booth out in the wilderness or out in the space. Most of the sound and light people that we're used to working with, they like to see what the audience sees.
Yes.
And so that ability for us to set up, there will be a permanent pedestal. There won't be a permanent structure. So they would need to come with their own tent, something like
Which
that.
they do already. I'm thinking of, Cliff and Roger and those guys. Okay, that helps. And I guess I have, so I'm glad, I wanted to confirm that there would be some further design work with the sound gurus who make us all sound great and use auto-tunify wherever on the stage. Just kidding. And curious about the weather conversation. So I guess the 30%, I'm trying to keep myself in my lane here. Curious if like the wind is going to change anything as far as the existing ABC roof options, and or the lighting. I guess I'm not sure how much that will factor into shifting, because you do get, despite the sun right in Gina's eyeballs when she sings on the old stage. I'm curious if there's concern with the shift in direction and what that would potentially mean with whatever our normal wind patterns are, and or if that's something that would come later in a scope for a performance venue, outdoor venue.
The wind generally our prevailing wind is from the southwest to the northeast. It basically follows that path that you see diagonally across the park. And so the current stage actually gets in addition to the sun, if you're on the day that we have prevailing winds, which we get wind from all 360 degrees, but most of the time we get it from the west southwest. The current stage actually is the most exposed. We'll gain a little bit of protection as we rotate. I will tell you that we will have some level of shelter that's associated with this, but it is an open air stage and the wind is going to blow and the performers are going to feel it.
Yeah. I want to make sure we weren't setting up a sail with this new.
We're actually turning the sail.
Very cool.
And so I think we're actually improving that to a degree.
And I think I have two more questions, if that's okay. Thank you. The rendering show the stage plopped right at the T where the path dumps us out. And because it's an overlay of our existing path, I'm trying to grain of salt, but I am concerned about encouraging even with the stage in its old location, you still see the folks who like to skitter across it. But I'm thinking in terms of wear and tear, if we're going to have to be factoring in some relocating of the path.
We are, and
Okay.
that's included in the discussions we're
Okay.
having currently about that load in, load out as to what is the extent of that, and the feedback that we received about the Dancers Plaza. And so we are literally putting the stage at the crossroads of the park, and so there is going to be some amount of realignment for us to deal with that.
Okay. And I guess with the Dancers Plaza, I mean, I guess we'll get to that when the design phase continues. I mean, there's plenty of people who I know who prefer to touch grass, like literally touch grass, and aren't necessarily looking for a paved thing. And so the paving of the plaza is lower on my priority list. I understand there's the accessibility factor. So don't know if that was also some of the feedback.
It is. We're balancing that. This will still be a predominantly lawn amphitheater space. What we're trying to avoid, especially with it being at those crossroads, is we're going to need an all-weather surface that stands up to that, so we don't end up with a muddy mosh pit in front of the stage.
You just throw hay down like you always do at Ren Fair or a mosh pit. Maybe that's wanted. No, I love it.
We could do that.
I love it. And I guess I have 1.5 questions left. So one of the things that came up, Mr. Mayor, I can feel the heavy sigh from here. Is there anyone who isn't going to use it in the new location? Because as I recall, when I had served on the board for the Rendezvous in the park, there are contractual obligations given the height of the stage and the kind of talent we bring in that they want like full barricades and stuff. And that's why the Rendezvous would likely still be planning to rent a stage. But curious if anyone who had been on our list 15 years ago who is there now is saying, actually,
No,
we're using it the same way.
Actually, I would say that, and I don't want to speak for Rendezvous, but based on the November meeting, they were actually enticed with the idea of this stage might be something, if we work hard at designing it, we could do risers to this stage, and depending on the acts that they have. And so they're still kind of up in the air. They're happy with their current rental arrangement with their mobile stage, and so they're not committed to, we're absolutely going to move here, but they were way more amenable to that this time than they were 15 years ago.
Okay,
And so I could see a time where perhaps some of the lesser acts, and it wouldn't just be Children's Rendezvous, it would actually be some of the main acts would do it. Maybe Thursday, Friday is there, and Saturday they do something else. And so it was a great conversation. They weren't ready to commit, but to answer your question, I'm seeing more stakeholders say, we believe this might be something we'd use for our permanent plans.
Okay. And I guess my last thing, because I see 2 familiar faces of Bill Voxman and Joanna Muneta in the audience. I lived in Moscow my whole life, and I am very personally attached. I have lots of memories to the old stage. And when I walk through the park, I have stopped at Cody's recommendation to look at the natural amphitheater, and I am feeling more comfortable with the idea of moving the stage. However, the concerns I'm hearing from the community are what it may look like. I'm glad to hear that more public engagement is on the docket, but trying to understand what opportunities there may be to honor the previous volunteers and donors, because that stage, the old stage didn't last us as long as we wanted it to, but it did hold a heck of a lot of memories. And I'm thinking in terms of the people who have reached out to understand if it'll still be named the Peter Pessoa stage. And so if that will come with a community element, that's great. But I also have not been on council or in town long enough to recall a time where we have had a big call to action to community members between donors or businesses to contribute to a public space like this. And so trying to understand if that's in the cards, if there's interest, if the people who are using the stage have mentioned interest in that. But honoring the people who have put in the work to get the old stage keeping it there for as long as it could, and what it could look for this new era of a new generation of people in Moscow who are really passionate about supporting the arts in the community.
Certainly, I think regardless of the location, I think there's an opportunity. I think it would be a shame in either scenario to just take those materials to the landfill. I've already talked very preliminarily with the parks folks and the arts folks. If there's an opportunity, whether it's something in the, in the landscape, something used for framing materials on the new stage, but certainly that's something we want to explore.
And I'm guessing some of that will also follow when we start seeing the quotes and estimates and understanding what was in our budget for those improvements. So Mr. Mayor, I think I'm stepping off of my,
Give some
Grant.
opportunity for the rest here,
I warned you, I had a lot of questions.
but we got them all out of the way. So,
I think I can go pretty briefly.
Good.
Because I think Haley kind of got a lot of stuff out there that I don't want to, I think it's out there. So I appreciate that. It was interesting today. I finished my 1 hour of Moscow mentoring up at Lena Whitmore. And I was like, I'm going to go walk through the park, knowing that this was on the agenda and having read through the packet this weekend and having some of those renderings more visible in my mind as opposed to just kind of concept of what it could be. And walking through the park today, and it was cold and drizzly and gross, and I was just out there taking pictures and walking around. But visualizing it, again, having these renderings on the forefront of my mind, again, gives me more excitement to continue to explore what it would look like moving the stage, especially like really visualizing it being backed up to the existing restroom. And then also, as indicated in this graphic here, the thought that I just hadn't really had, unless maybe it had come up in conversation, but also I think the feasibility of having parents with their kids at the playground also being able to watch the performances and what's happening on the stage, where now there's just kind of a little bit of a jostling that has to take place. So I, in terms of like kind of community outreach and impact, I was encouraged to again put myself in that place to be like, oh, if I had a child and I was up there playing with him, I can still hear Gina sing, right, and see Gina sing as well. So
It's important.
it's important. It's important to see Gina sing. So
at the opening.
so for me, I think what's important, and as has been alluded to, as you continue to develop, again, whatever that looks like for an open community forum, an open community feedback space to continue to get community input while also kind of showing the direction that this is going, but saying why it is the case and having what you have to kind of back up the direction that it's moving. And so I would just continue to offer spaces for the community to reach out and what that looks like. And I think those are my two things. So.
After Drew. Drew is next.
Drew, are you next?
Yeah, I didn't know it was a balance of go.
You are now.
So thank you, Cody, and thanks, Ned, for being here. When we went through this, I think the concerns that we've seen from the community, from council, being able to pivot in a way to bring stakeholders that are actively engaged in the space, I think that's exactly what we asked for. And staff delivered on that. And so I just want to thank you for doing that and taking it seriously in a way to get more information to communicate that. That helps tell a greater story. I think to Haley's comment and to what you said, Cody, about finding a way, in no means this exercise and this design study and this concept is meant to take away from anything in the past. I've never felt that way. It's only to enhance the future. And we've brought in 7 individual stakeholders that have a great thing with the park. The thing that I recognize with this is, what are the other stakeholders in our community, given a more accessible stage, modernized standards, what more is that going to bring to the park? And at the end of the day, as community members, leaders of the community, we need to think about that, about other people that can to use the space. But I do love this idea of having a history. And again, this is like a schematic. This is an idea that we're thinking about, but how do we use the materials from the old stage, no matter what, right? Well, how do we repurpose it? No one likes, at least I don't like taking things to a landfill. No one feels good about that. But also like just the history of why that happened there. That story, we don't want to lose that story at all during this process. But, what we are tasked with is balancing that with the future and the future needs of the community. And so, and I also just appreciate how we're not going to axe 3 trees that have been here longer than any of us and probably will be here longer than any of us. The work that we're doing to preserve that and simply even just touching their roots being that old. I mean, who knows what it could do to we have a tree commission studying that. We're very serious about our trees in Moscow. And so thinking about that and just even building an existing stage in front of 3 existing trees really doesn't sit well with me. And And so again, thank you. And we look forward to seeing this at other things. And we also look forward to people here in the community bringing up concerns and excitement, because this is something to be excited about, because it benefits all of us in the community, potentially people that, of course, aren't even born yet that are going to be using this. So.
Aside from the selfishness of my retinal health, I think this is a very exciting time. And I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said, except the tree thing. I totally agree with that. There should not be a moment where trees are sacrificed. And that's what it is. The accessibility thing, I think we've expanded the definition a little bit. Not only is it accessible to maybe disabled or people who are differently abled, but also to the parents who are trying to watch their kids not take a header off of a swing set. You know, I mean, that's a big deal. And having 3 grandbabies of my own, I think, oh my God, how can I possibly breathe and watch you guys? So I will also, I'm going to close my comments with a loving disagreement with Haley in that there is no graceful load in or load out off of a stage. I've had so many moments where I've caught a boot or a cord and almost taken one of the headers myself. So, I mean, it is still the glory of performing is that you're your own roadie at that point, and there's just sweat and dirt goes along with it. So if you can make it so that it's easier, great. But there is schlepping, and schlepping happens. And so I also hope that this is kind of a moment for you, Ned, because I think we're the older ones in the room and we've seen this before, right? I hope this is a little bit of a sanity support for you that this, how many years ago, was a really cool idea. And we're there again. And I'm sorry it took this freaking long, but it's also how we do things in Moscow, right? And so I'm excited to hear what else we have to say and what else, other little details and things that we can come up with, because I think you're the right guy to do it with. So, okay, I'm done.
I have one more question.
Sure. You're next in line.
Oh, great.
And then-
Oh, no, I've already gone. Julie, you can go.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, like, the only thing that always happens is change. And so I think that this stage helps us move forward as a community. It provides a bigger space, a better stage. And it's time for us to, you know, to let change happen and to look at, like Drew says, different people who are maybe going to use the stage in the future if we have a more accessible place. I just want you all to think about this. Did you know that East City Park used to house our pool?
Yeah.
Like, East City Park is a living, breathing part of this community, and it changes over time. And if you think about the idea that there was a pool there at one point, I mean, this is going to grow and evolve over time. I love the idea that the playground is more accessible for families to see the stage. Having raised several children here, I know the pull of wanting to see the music and wanting to mind my children. So I think that's a great addition to how this will flow. So that's all.
Yeah, the one question that I forgot earlier, and that's a couple things that have come up from folks. This is sounding like it's already a done deal, and I don't think it is. Am I correct on that?
No.
I don't think, no, it's not a done deal. I mean, ultimately, this contract, this process will come back to you with a design that's evolved to the 30% stage, the costs associated with that, and a summary of all the feedback we've received. And then we can, that'll be fun where we can get into just how at a 30% level we've got into the loading and unloading and topography and how that's all been addressed. Beyond that, to take it further to construction level would require your approval of additional agreements and then funding for construction. So far from a done deal.
Great. And honestly, the reason I bring that up is just that I mean, for me personally, I've learned a lot more and I appreciate that a lot. But I also think that I hope that when presenting it, it doesn't come across as this is exactly what we're doing, right? I hope it is an input output discussion more, right? Because I look at this and I feel like, oh, this is what's happening next, right? Cool. Look at how the playground is. Oh, wow. There's going to be shade, all that. But I hope when we do have our community events and we're out in the different places, it's not, this is exactly what we're doing. What do you think? More in terms of this is what we have, this is what we're looking at, this is what Design West has been working on. What do you think? Not that this is it, how do we progress? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Thanks.
And I guess to that point, Sandra, so is it helpful for the renderings of the new stage in the existing location are helpful for me in the packet? In terms of accepting the report and providing feedback, of which I realize I gave a boatload of, is Design West and the city looking for us to say, please proceed with community conversation, prioritizing the new location and not further design work on copy paste in the existing footprint? Is that going to be helpful? Or because does that like, yeah, I mean, I'm whoever wants to answer, but.
If I may, Your Honor, that is the agreement we have with Design West, is to do the 30% design based on the 2010 location.
Right.
The council did ask us to verify with stakeholder groups that it's still, the input received in 2010 still is current today. We've done that. So we will be proceeding with respect to location in the new location. And I think we've talked about all the reasons why this evening. The things we'll be asking the public about are those design elements, colors, materials, feature, roof structure, things that can help shape the project as it moves forward.
Okay, that helps. My last request would be to, don't shy away, I guess, from the pros and cons of clarifying. I think the tree conversation is one that most anyone who spends any amount of time at any one or all of the events will understand as a priority. And I'm pretty stoked. I feel a lot better now than I did in May. So thank you for all your hard work with this update and re-engaging. I feel better with this report and guidance and direction, having known that we re-engaged these community stakeholders. So that's what I got.
Can I ask just one? Yeah. What do you and other city staff have kind of either conceptual plans on how to engage more with the community, anything in discussion, or certain kind of time frame by which you're looking at here, just so we can have that?
I really think it kind of outlines the key steps here, kind of through winter and into early spring. I suppose the latest one you'd see there would be probably that spring farmers market. What is that first Saturday in May? So
Yeah.
kind of into spring.
Okay, cool. And what would be the best way for community members to find out about, say, an open house or public meeting? Would that be kind of on the city's website? Would that be through certain avenues?
Yeah, I think beyond reaching out to, we've heard from a number of people, probably the same people that have written to you. We would contact them directly, and then certainly our website, social media channels. We could do, I suppose, published notice
Put
of some
one in
kind, but
the water bill.
yeah, utility billings and other.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cody.
Just one more clarifier. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Is that okay?
yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just one more clarifier on this. So we're done with,
Still is valid today. And so the focus will be on the design elements, the roof structure. That'll be what we'll be seeking public input upon.
so, and just to that, and I'm not trying to be argumentative at all, but just from correspondence that have been put in, it seems like there was confusion on new stage, old stage, and whether we were going to have community events and community participation and this kind of thing earlier about whether to have a new stage or an old stage. So I've had people ask me that, and I wasn't sure. That's why I asked the earlier question about community events. So that's off. That's off. We're just, the old is done.
That was the council's action in approving the agreement was in this new location. We had that conversation among the council, and we did want to go back. The council did articulate a desire to go back and validate the input they got in 2010 from the stakeholders, which we've done. But this is the the focus of the location moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, do we need any action from the council to accept the report, or by listening, we've accepted?
There's no action. This is not an action item, so just accepting the report.
Okay.
It is listed as an action item on the agenda.
It does say action item there.
Then accept the report.
The report. Julia's moving. There you go.
And I'll second.
Okay,
It's
Nope,
okay, I
sorry.
got it.
so Okay, so motion and second. So Haley,
Aye.
Drew,
Aye.
Gina,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Bryce,
Aye.
and Julia.
Aye.
There.
Awesome.
We've officially done
Play
the
it,
action
play it extra
item.
safe.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Like
moving
to
on.
make sure we do things.
Next up, we have reports from city council people. Gina?
I have one whopping report for you tonight.
We also didn't give reports at our last meeting.
We did not give reports at our last meeting because by the time we got done with our discussion, I was ready not to be around the fiber.
And we didn't want you to miss
And
out.
you were worried about Mr. Mayor missing
And we
it.
were worried
Sorry to
about
interrupt on
our
that one.
lovely
I
mayor.
appreciate your
missing all the fun.
consideration.
So again, I still have one whopping report for you. The tree commission met and they actually are considering, or they're drafting a newsletter for I'm sorry. No, they did call it a newsletter that goes out with the billing statements
Mhm.
that is going to teach people how to properly care for newly planted trees. I have so many questions even, and I have a background in landscape architecture, I should know, but the fun part is I still question every time I sneeze around my new tree. And so this will be something we can not only pay our bill with, but then keep. I recommend that you fold it up and keep it, they also are working on their Arbor Day seedling list, and I can't give you any spoilers at this point as much as I might want to. Thank you, Haley, because I want the anticipation to go over the holidays for you. Yeah.
This will be the only thing I'm thinking about.
I know. I too will be quizzical about that. So anyway, amen. That's the last I got for you.
Sandra,
I have a little more.
go for it.
Surprise.
I know. I'm going to go quick and I'm not going to give big reports on all of them. I had a delightful time talking with the Navigator group about food pantries and how to volunteer in our community. I had a great talk with a couple Boy Scout groups about various things throughout the city of Moscow. I had a great town and gown event. I personally love that I get to work with those students every day and that I get to work with you all. And I feel like I get to show off both sides to all people I really like a lot. So that's a very fun day for me. We had the Historical Society had their pie party. That was great. I happen to have, I have to say this, an amazing mud pie made by our very own Julia Parker. It was spectacular. Holy cow. We also just had the Victorian Christmas. If anyone wants to see the McConnell Mansion in all its holiday splendor, you can still do that. We had the Orchid Awards. It seems like ages ago, but haven't got to talk about that and had a really lovely time there. Great discussion. Only had, I think, 3 awards this year, but more coming up because a lot of things are being built. I always love the orchids. That goes right into historic preservation, where we talked about orchids and talked about future plans for the university district. And then we had the holiday parade, which was great. Got to wave at the mayor while marching through the parade. And I'm sure I'm missing some, but the one I really don't want to miss out on is to let you all know that Alternative Giving Market was held on the 11th, and we raised over $50,000 for area nonprofits.
That's awesome.
And I think that's it.
That's awesome.
Julia?
Well, this is embarrassing. I took my great notes on my phone so I would have them anywhere I went, and then I left my phone at home. But what I remember is that the Farmers Market Commission celebrated or lamented the last meeting for Jamie Hill, who's been the president, the leader of that chair, thank you, of that commission for a long time. So that was pretty sad to have her move on to new things. We talked about training for that commission and staff members and how important it is to get people out to some of the trainings. There's one in Washington and there's one in California that focuses on running farmers markets. I had the Sustainable Environment Commission, Moscow High School Environmental Club came, so that was really nice to have them there. And they talked a lot about prioritizing their climate efforts. Sorry.
Yes, Julia, I recognize you.
Yes, I do. And also had the Clearwater Economic Development Association quarterly meeting. And they talked about all of their accomplishments over the year, none of which I can remember right now. So I'm sorry, I failed CETA. Okay, I'm done.
Have some water.
Yeah. Can I get?
Drew?
Yeah, so I'll jump through this. Unfortunately, I had another meeting. Unfortunately I have another 7 o'clock meeting, so I wasn't able to attend the city county U of I breakfast, but that went well for those that attended. I did attend the week 2 weeks prior though. The county had a meeting with Pullman, ourselves, universities, in cities about transportation. So good breakfast meeting, discussing those items. Also had the opportunity to, I think really one thing important for people watching in the crowd to know is that, our city staff do a really good job about doing lots of things. And so we were able to host a holiday party for them. It's a great opportunity to see just people come together that don't get to work. And then also really enjoyed being able to judge 15 chili, 15, 14?
12.
12.
12 of them.
12.
Seems like
There's a
more than
lot
those
of
were-
chili.
There's a lot.
We had to redo some, like in second chances,
Yeah.
so it felt like.
Yeah. So, but it was just great to be there and to mingle with hardworking staff that we don't get to see often in these meetings, and had some really good chili. Got to participate in the chamber, really with the next leader, their group of leaders, and be on a panel to talk about leadership. And it's an honor to be there with Bryce and Sandra. Town and gown event, again, great. I won't jump into that, but it's always good to have one of those and talk about our community partners. Parks and Rec meeting, had that last week, and talk about a lot of motivating folks and the people that we saw tonight at public comment, the pickleballers. They were there, and don't get between a pickleballer and their courts. And so I got a good there's a really great documentary on most things if you want to watch that about pickleball. I recommend it. I have nothing to do with what I do on council, but
Continued learning.
yeah, continued learning. But yeah, great group of people at the parks, and anyway, and that was my last time being on that. I've been on there this year. I really appreciated that. And then Mira. So we have a joint meeting coming up with the city and Mira coming up at the beginning of the year to talk about direction.
January 13th.
January 13th to be exact, and talk about long-term visioning, about projects, and being able to report some of the work that we're doing with council. And so looking forward to that. And I went to the holiday parade. I wasn't in it. I just got too much candy in my house from it. So it was great.
My goodness. Bryce.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had other things to say, but I'm going to just hit what I would say are some of the highlights over the last month or so since giving our last reports. Planning and zoning has been pretty quiet, and that'll continue until the next year. So haven't attended any planning and zoning meetings as of late. Have a Human Rights Commission meeting tomorrow, as mentioned earlier. It'll be my last one of the year, so I'm excited to, round that out with them and talk about the Martin Luther King breakfast and other things happening within the community. And then going back, also attended Town and Gown, which was great to mingle. And the vice president of ASUI is in one of my classes next semester, so that'll be nice to have that kind of continued connection and be able to kind of, again, have both worlds represented in a really meaningful way. And then on November 11th, Monday, Veterans Day, about a month ago or so, I attended the Veterans Day dinner at the U of I at the ICCU Arena. I saw Mr. Mayor there, and just really great to support veterans in the community from near and far. Was lucky enough to attend with some local business owners in the community and was really grateful for that. And then flashing forward a little bit more, there were a couple of us, Julia and Sandra and the mayor, that attended the Firefighters Award banquet a week ago. It was the night that the U of I played Lehigh. So we were at the Best Western, but supporting both firefighters and the Vandals. And that was a treat to see just all the hard work that they put in and all the hard work that they do for our community on such. Yeah, it's very impressive. And especially to support the young people that are in the program is really inspiring. Also was a judge for the chili for the holiday party last week for the city. And to echo what Drew was saying, really inspiring to see the various people that work for us and work to kind of keep the city running all come together for a couple of hours and celebrate and support them. That was really exciting. And then and then I also participated in the Leadership Moscow panel last week as well with Drew and Sandra. And then the last two things, and these are a little obscure, but maybe you've gathered over my first year on council, I do some obscure things occasionally. But I want to give a public shout out to Coach Eck, the University of Idaho Vandal football team, and his family. He just accepted a head coaching position at the University of New Mexico. But I just want to thank him for his energy that he brought to the Palouse and the energy that he brought to not just the U of I, but also Moscow and the region. I think that to have a program that is visible on the national spotlight is pretty impressive for our little town. It's pretty cool to kind of be showcased in that way. So I wish him and his wife and his family all the best in New Mexico. And I hope that we keep that energy going with whoever our next coach is. And then lastly, as alluded to, this is, how did I write this in my book? This is my last meeting of my first year on council. And I just wanted to say, extend first a gratitude to the community of what I've learned from you all and being able to represent you all for a year up here. I also want to say thank you so much to city staff and what I've learned from you all over this first year on council. And then I also want to say that I've learned a ton from working with you all and getting to have conversations with you, to see how you operate, how you work through issues, how you work through problems. And it's been really, really inspiring. And I just am really looking forward to year two. So just wanted to extend a giant bit of gratitude to everybody for my first year on council. And I'm really excited to dig in even more in 2025. So thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. Haley.
I'll try to keep it brief. Town and Gown was great. Caught up with one of the ASY cabinet members who also works with the, it's not the ad team, but Vandal Design. I don't remember what they're called. Anyway.
Solutions?
I think so. Yes, thank you. Vandal Solutions. And I'm hoping to, it was a great introduction because I'm spending a lot of time with Smart Transit right now. And there's some cool marketing ideas going around, but just not quite enough manpower to pull them off for Smart. So that was super beneficial. County hosted transportation breakfast on November 20th was great as well. There's some good ideas, and we were able to get Casey Green, our executive director of Smart, some intros. The LDS community had reached out to host council to help us understand the merging. No, I'm sorry, the opposite of merging. The recent split between the Pullman stake and the Moscow stake. And Sandra, Drew, and I were able to be there with Nathan Weller and Mayor Francis Benjamin from Pullman. And it was a really cool conversation. We know that we live in a community where people really like giving back. And it was a really cool conversation where we had a really good exchange of ideas, trying to match up the folks who are excited and ready to contribute to existing volunteer ideas and opportunities. So that was really cool. Light Up the Season was great. Winter markets have been great. The breakfast, I was the only council person, I think, who made it because Mr. Mayor was in Boise for the city county schools breakfast, 7 a.m. bright and early. It's not Bob's anymore, but the food at the Wallace is always great. And it was Kathy LaFortune's last meeting of that kind before she cycles off of the county commissioners. The one thing I wanted to flag for us was she shared at that meeting that the county's additional outreach for the housing authority has been going well. However, part of the conversation with the smaller towns is in terms of what would come with annexing either low or like no tax parcels for these housing units would be really difficult for a lot of even Genesee or Troy. And so the feedback she's hearing back is there is community buy-in. We know that there is a housing shortage. However, they can't afford to annex more property in to have developments that can't be taxed. And so what Kathy's imparting words to us were, there's a path forward for a housing authority. It would be a separate governing entity. However, it was going to be on Moscow to carry the torch. And so I'm guessing after Kathy has a couple months of a breather in her initial months of retirement being out of the county commissioner office, I'm hoping she is still game to help us understand what that looks like and figure out if that's something that we have an appetite for. So sorry, that's a longer update. I don't really want to talk about the Vandals because I am strangely incredibly emotional about the Coach Eck news, and I don't want to talk about it. And then the last thing I'll end with, AARP hosts a quarterly or like monthly town hall with Governor Little. And so it's recorded on their Facebook page. November 25th was the last one. And I submitted a question that the governor answered in relation to emergency funding. And our 911 surcharge fees have not been increased since the 80s. I think that's something the counties are interested in talking about. But if the fee schedule was changed at the state level, there could be an opportunity for the sort of piggy bank things that we have to do to fund a $6 million antenna improvement would not have to be at the cost of property taxpayers. It would instead come out of your phone bill. So I'm sure there will be some opposition in the legislature from shifting one to the other, but that I asked the question if he'd be interested in signing a bill, if he got it there, and his answer was basically, if you get the bill to my desk, I'll sign it. So I think there's some opportunity for us, Mr. Mayor, to work with the Association of Idaho Cities.
I think so too.
Yes, so that's, I'm ending the year with gratitude and some cautious optimism that 2025 won't be a dumpster fire. So back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, so my report dates clear back to shortly after the election because I was down in Boise for the Association of Idaho Cities meeting. Another council meeting was canceled, and so there's this great pileup. But it started off with the Mayor's Arts Awards, which was a lovely occasion, emphasizing the arts that go on here in Moscow. Good stuff. The Veterans Day dinner, which is always a very special occasion, recognizing our veterans who've served. And there are a lot of people from around this area who've been in various branches of the military, only one in the Space Force.
So far.
Yep. Stepping Stones distributed about $40,000 worth of assistance to people of different abilities who need a little extra hand up to make it in the world. So that's always a worthy organization. Safe Routes to Schools met in here to discuss more studies and initiatives to assure better walking and bicycling to school in town here. The Orchid Awards, we mentioned those. That also happened. Town Gown, always a hootenanny, talking with the ASUI people and some of the university staff about areas of overlap of interest. The airport is proceeding with, we hope, a vendor for the food operation out there. Hopefully by the first of the year, we'll see somebody in there. They're from New York, and they are already operating a lot of concessions at other airports, but all back east. And they want to get an inroad out here in the West, and we're the first new airport to come on that provides them an opportunity to do so. Holiday parade, the Light Up the Season parade, always a hoot. And I will say that Sandra callously waved at me and gave me no candy whatsoever. She just kept right on stepping.
She gave me a ton.
So,
Sorry, I was gone by the time I saw Drew.
oh well. Legislative Summit down in Boise with the Association of Idaho Cities, where we took a look at issues coming up before the legislature, perhaps. Nothing too horrible yet. So we'll wait and see how that goes. Our local representative, Lori McCann, is looking to extend the Resort Cities Ordinance, which currently exists, for municipalities that have a lot of transient tourism going on, but it's capped at 10,000. Well, with Sandpoint and McCall starting to nudge into 10,000, they're going to lose a big chunk of their budget. So I sense that now is a good time to hit the road and incorporate not only cities with a large resort transit population, but cities of less than 50,000 with a large transit population for university and colleges, who'd be us. And we could sure use the ability to bolster the budget through publicly voted in at 2/3, 66.67% approval for very targeted revenues from, say, per bed night at hotels or something like that, so that the people who come into town, a lot of them from Washington, can help pay for the services and infrastructure that they use here in Moscow. So I hope that gets some traction and goes. Went to the fire department's life-saving awards. couple weeks ago. These guys do a great job, and they recognize the efforts that the volunteers and the resident volunteers put in when it comes to actually saving lives. And these are the guys that you never think about much until you really, really need them.
Yeah.
By guys, I mean holistically.
but
It's a reflex from the past.
I'm
Yes. So anyway, so they're there when we need them. And most of the time, people just see people driving fire trucks around roundabouts and things and wonder, is that person really old enough to be navigating this behemoth? But yeah, they do a great job and it's much appreciated. The Fireman's Banquet was a delight, as it always is. NRS provide a lot of prizes to the firefighters for a raffle drawing, a couple inflatables, which was pretty spectacular, I thought. Employee chili cook-off event. I think I've recovered. Basically, but it was a hoot and a half. It's nice to see all the employees that you never get a chance to see otherwise, because when we're around, they're all out actually working, keeping the city running. And also spoke at Leadership Moscow, followed up on the counselors who were there describing to Leadership Moscow how the city works. So that's what I've been up to for about the past month, among other things. Bill, anything from staff?
Just a couple quick updates.
Yeah.
We will be canceling the admin committee meeting for next week. So since that's falling during the Christmas week, the meeting for the 23rd will be canceled. That'll be, it'll be 3 weeks until our next official meeting, which will start off with the organizational workshop on January 6th at 5 p.m. and then council meeting to follow at 7.
So there we go.
Well, I'll miss you all. See you next year.
So yeah, and the 13th at 5 o'clock, joint meeting with Moscow Urban Renewal Agency. So there you have it. And motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Sounded pretty much like acclamation. We're adjourned.